Our own emancipation is in our hands. And I think it's time that we stop complaining about white people so much while we're imitating them half the day. And self-determination is about the confidence to say it's okay for us to be who we are. We don't have to always answer to whiteness. We don't need a black version of everything. Let's just do our own thing and circulate the black rand.
You did a dramatic depiction of the trial at Jantjie. Tell us about that. That really impressed me.
Thank you. Luka Jantjie, what the colonists used to do is that they take your land, and then if you keep fighting and you're creating problems for the British administration, then they say, okay, let's hold a trial to establish whose land it is. And then the very white guys that you're fighting over, they get to question you. They're not lawyers like some white marks from nowhere. They get to trial you. You don't get to cross-examine. You don't get to say shit really that you want to say. So what happened is that I got a transcription of this trial, and he was questioned by about 3 or 4 white men, but I compressed them all into one white man because I didn't want to make them too significant, have them names, character. I didn't want to bring them to life. The point was to bring Nkosi Jantjie to life. So I didn't change any of his words. But the questioners and stuff played around with how the questions came at him. And they say things like, oh, well, how can you prove this? You don't even believe in borders. Because he's like, but I would never need, that's conceptually, we're talking different things. And then they'll say things like, oh, but when we got there, it was empty. And he's like, no, we seasonal pasturers. We move the next season so that we give the earth a chance to recover. We are with the earth. We are not on the earth. Okay. We're not here to finish it. So this myth that it's because we were giving the earth a chance to breathe. We were going to come back, you know? So those are the issues covered in the trial. And it's just this mission of detailing the dispossession so that people can get an understanding of how their land was taken. For me, it's just to give you armor to affirm that it is yours and that you should use isithakazelo sakho as a title deed because of these events.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to touch on, because I think in that video, one of the white guys asks, what proof do you have that this is your land? And what you've just raised now, I think is part of his answer, that isithakazelo sam, my ancestors' names, or isithakazelo isingesi.
You can't translate things that don't exist.
Yeah. They call it clan name, right?
Yeah, clan bars. I love these young people. Clan bar, ancestral bars.
Yes.
But he doesn't even use that because I'm using this argument in hindsight. I have 300 years of trial to be able to construct that sort of argument. He was on a back foot. There wasn't an experience of that before for someone to say, actually.
How did that end, that trial?
They ended up saying, oh, well, too bad. And his father had also gone through a trial. And they said, so then that's why they used the information from that trial and say, yeah, your father said the land belonged to Kgosi Tau. And Jantjie's like, no, we all related. So they were trying to divide and say, but isn't so-and-so your chief? Isn't so? And he's like, no, but we are one. Those issues, how you are, and he even says, paramount chief is an English term. You came with that stuff. This is not, those are not how we conceptualize life, you know? But I believe that isithakazelo is the title deed. This thing of going to argue on their terms in their courts, so win. It's going to be a long... I mean, now, we are kekelezwa because of the law itself. Yeah, kekeleza. So if you want to wait for that, it's going to be a long wait. Eh?
What do you suggest we do?
Occupy.
Is that what you've done?
Yes.
And how long have you been occupying this piece of land?
This is my 3rd year here.
Have you had any issues with law enforcement?
No.
Okay.
There was a few white people who tried to be white. And then we just explained to them that, we're not those kind of darkies. We don't take orders and Jantjie. Yeah. Yeah.
What were they saying?
What are you doing here? You trespassing? And then I was like, no, sorry, I can't allow you to talk to me like that. So I'll take a step back.
In that particular accent.
Yeah, to disarm them. Then they were like, Evan. You know, and I was like, nah, bro, you can't talk to me like that, one. Secondly, you have a smartphone, Google occupation laws. I'm occupying here. Unless you're the sheriff of the court, I've got nothing to say to you. Bye-bye.
And they left it at that.
They left it at that. The owner hasn't taken us to court, so...
Okay.
So I say occupy. And then people say, what are you going to do? Occupy and restore.
Now I call you an artist activist. That's how I label you. Are you into labels? How do you label yourself? How do you box yourself? I know this could be an issue for an artist.
For me, the way I grew up, because my father was a playwright in the 80s, and the artists around him.
Playwright, playwriter,
Because
modeler. You've also been a modeler. Well,
Yes,
a
I was
model, right?
No, I was a model. I wasn't a modeler. I was both.
Okay.
But
Okay, so
he
in the
was a
80s you're
playwright.
dead,
So for me, an artist should be an actor. For me, there's no distinction.
Okay.
An artist's work is to liberate, is to enforce a revolution.
So Ayanda Mabulu, Masello Motana.
Yeah, when I did Cyrilina at the statue outside Parliament, I had people said they'd help me go up on the statue. They didn't come, and Ayanda was the one who put the steps there and made sure I got up there. So our paths have crossed very nicely.
I actually need to get hold of him. It would be interesting. Because, I was thinking the other day, I think he depicted or drew my money, but Helen, I'll have to bleep this out. Helen, right? Yeah, I think he was. But now I'm thinking he should be up the other way around.
Yeah.
Helen should be putting a stick up his ass.
A huge one.
Because, anyway. Okay, so your dad was a playwright. Sorry, I get carried away.
An artist and an activist, for me, they weren't kulenga corner. They are exactly the same. The urgencies might be and the agencies might be different, but an artist has to be on the side of the people and has to push for a revolution, not for a slice of the cake.
So, artist, are you entertainer? I thought you performing like
an artist can entertain.
Okay.
But our main mission is to safeguard the revolution. That's what actually you can entertain.
Are you quoting someone with that? Or is this you?
Many people have said it. Many people have said it. But the way I assumed the world was that an artist has to be a revolutionary agent before they can be an entertainer. Yeah, it's all nice. We must entertain ourselves. But artists are the only people who can change a situation quicker than anyone that I can think of.
There are two dramatizations that you've done that I also want to touch on. Now we move away from the whole land issue. It still has not been resolved. From 1996, Derek tried to help us. And then, who's the land? I don't even know who the land minister is.
Mthokozisi.
Okay, I remember there was a Google India at some point. Anyway, but we're still there. Nothing has happened. There was a public hearing in 2018, 2019. Last time you saw it's going to happen. It's now 2021. I told you about the Bullhook incident, which happened. Anniversary Yakona was this week, actually. I think on Tuesday, if not Monday. Unatim Twetwa, who's the Minister of Arts, said, no, it's happening within this term. Yeah, well, is this term 6, right? I think it's term 6 of the parliament. So, Tiza Gwanzega, under Cyril. Let's see if that really happens. But now, there's an incident that recently happened in South Africa. Just to give context again, there were protests by students who are calling for tertiary education to be free in Wits and other universities around South Africa. A man who happens not to be a student was shot at by police. Don't know if it was mistaken identity or happy trigger policeman who just shot him.
He was coming out of a building like a dentist, where the protest was happening. Then they shot him once with a rubber bullet, and he got up to be like, how much itakantini? The more he got up, they just kept pumping him with rubber bullets, and that mother's child died.
Father's child. And then did you mean to say mother's child?
Yes.
Okay, explain.
No, I'm thinking.
That mother, umntana wala mama.
I was thinking.
I guess you're thinking like a mother. No, I get you. Okay. Umntana wala mama wafa.
Yes, somebody's child died. Yes.
That woman's child, direct translation, something like
died.
that. You did a depiction on the street. I thought that was powerful. Can you break it down for us? I'll run clips here and there, but okay, for the audio podcast, they won't be able to see that. But what was that all about? What was the thinking behind it? How did it play out? It was such a beautiful, well-told story that made me think, Kosiyam, we're getting played here. And I think you depicted that in the play too.
Yes.
Tell us about it.
The incident happened, and I just felt very numb, and I've done other pieces, other installations around Fees Must Fall before, and I'm part of movements like Artists for Fees Must Fall. So I've been a supporter of the Fees Must Fall movement for quite a while. And we did a piece in 2016, which we performed outside the Hillbrow Police, Cornhill, Bree Taxi Rank. And I felt like, man, we did all that work and clearly things haven't changed. So we're going to have to do something on a bit of a larger scale, which is why I brought in a stills artist who plays the policeman. So he's got the advantage of height, and which is the advantage of the state and the advantage of state power. But what I wanted to do was not only to demonize the police, but to say that the police acts on instruction. So we had another artist on the ground level who's then pulling the strings, who plays the politicians in a blue suit and wearing a hat of the South African flag. He pulls the strings of the larger-than-life puppet.
Why a blue suit, not a gold, black, and green?
Because now gold, black, and green has assumed state power, which is blue.
Okay.
And it's state power that they are using to control the police.
Okay. Because in my thinking, I associated the blue with the DA.
No, that was for me, it's state power, but also who owns what. It's all power. Power ends up blue some way, somehow.
Okay.
So then you have a scene of people who are playing a game and building, like Modlali Chicago, you build up the cans, but those cans are written Sichaba. So you're building up the nation through education. That's the message that we're giving there. And then when the graduation gown comes into the choreography, then there's a fight because one of the kids, which is what the protest was about financial exclusion, that, okay, you let people come into the system and because you say education will solve problems, but then you can't give it for free. I don't know what you're studying then. So now they don't want to give this person the gown. And then there's a skirmish, then the police character comes and shoots. So then we reenact what happened. So it was a very traumatic thing to work on. I mean, I do reenactments all the time, but it's usually something from 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So there's a sense of being removed. This one was very, very close to home and very, very painful to execute. And we had drummers to carry the sound, also to mark the different spaces, also to give us the space between death and life, because that's what drums to play that the spiritual significance. So it was very difficult to put together.
You also took quote from a famous phrase from Niggas with Attitude.
Yeah.
And you had it up there.
Oh, that's Ayanda Mabulu's work. That's what I used that as a backdrop purposefully. So he was that day, it was a lot of artists coming to install their grief.
Okay.
So he did that
After police.
Yes. And then so we were actually going to perform on this side of the street. But when I saw that thing, I was like, actually, that's our backdrop. Yeah. But yeah, love him.
Government?
Love him.
Are you feeling like Tupac right now?
Love them.
That touched me in a very deep, profound way. And it got me thinking, man, what is wrong? Is it that democratic system that governs us? Or is it the people that are in power, the government of the day, which is the ANC? What are we getting wrong that we seem to be saying we're moving away from?
It's a combination. The problem is the ANC itself. The problem is democracy itself. The problem is surrendering your power to any leader in the first place.
So we should also take responsibility.
Yes, more than anything, we should take responsibility. As long as you don't have a family-centered government, whatever the style is, whether it's capitalism, socialism, whatever it is, but as long as the family is not the center of your discussion, then you're in a lot of trouble. For example, we say, what should the minimum wage be? Not how much do things cost. Because you should say, how much does it take to feed a family? Not, well, uzosborn, I will make the minimum and then you will see to finish.
It's a messed up system,
you
man.
know?
Yes. Okay.
Employment. People are going to school and then asking for a boss. Nifunde niganti. Maybe go back to school, man. If your education can't give you the instruments of your own liberation, go to another school. You're in the wrong place because you can't be begging to have a boss. Please
repeat what you've just said.
That if your education doesn't give you instruments of liberation, then maybe you should look for another school. Because you should be able to free yourself.
Not necessarily another educational institution within the current education system.
No, then you're losing it. No, yes. It's not about going from vets to TUT. No. As long as it doesn't free us, I'm not sure if it's the right thing for us. If it can't make you... someone said we went to school to remember. You're just regurgitating other people's facts, not to think for yourself.
Mere reflectors of other people's thoughts.
Yes. I mean, if only big mojo, surely you should figure out how to feed yourself.
That's my issue with the current
system.
Guys, sifundela to become beggars. You got people
and to become employees, not to feed ourselves, not to free ourselves.
And professional beggars, employees.
Yes.
We pride ourselves as being employed, but siyafana nje because we also one paycheck away from being broke. If I don't get paid this month,
I'm on the class. You know the way I cringe when people say they're middle class. I feel like dying.
Let us gloat in our...
In the middle of what?
Narcissism.
Also in the middle of...
our miseducation.
In the middle of what?
In the middle of being broken, being almost rich, maybe.
So instead of saying there's a problem that we have so much disparity, we're happy to be the buffer.
Hey. Is this miseducation?
You know what I mean? We're always saying things like, it's Mandela Day, I'm going to buy school children's shoes. There's nothing wrong with buying other people's shoes. Why aren't you asking what kind of parents are we that we can't buy our children shoes? You see, we're always skimming things at the surface. There's no employment, so-and-so must come give us jobs.
Yeah, ne?
Why can't we feed ourselves outside of jobs? Like we never ask the bigger question. We love skimming the surface, just...
But we've been asking questions and no one is providing answers. We've been talking, nothing is happening.
Well, we must provide our own answers, number one. Number two, we never look in ourselves, look into the continent, look to the east. We're too busy responding to the West all the time.
Yes, there's something important you said about this entry-level income. What do they call it again? Minimum
wage.
Minimum wage. A guy that I want to interview on the podcast once said something that really impressed me. We always talk of a minimum wage, but there are guys who make a lot of money, like YT person.
Yeah, what's the maximum? Yeah.
Yes. Why can't we have a cap on how much these guys get paid? Yes. I've never heard this being asked before.
Exactly. But it's just like how we say people are underprivileged. We never say about the overprivileged.
Overprivileged.
For me to be underprivileged, for me to be dispossessed, someone possessed. So then it seems like you're just working on your luck and your merits and your dreams and all this crap, like selling people dreams when people are hungry, you know? And the disposition for me, it's even more evident now in COVID that people can't feed themselves.
Okay, so now I'm thinking about our democracy in South Africa. It doesn't seem to be helping us that much. And it was sold to us as the magic wand that will take us out of our poverty, out of our strife, out of our issues, but we still end up in the same spaces we thought and hoped would be out of, as Lokishin, RDP houses, which in some instances are even smaller than the apartheid forums, Zasekasi. What are we getting wrong, man? Is this what our freedom is supposed to be? I mean, I was talking to you earlier saying I saw a documentary of how the country that used to be called Southwest Africa, which is now Namibia, which used to be part of South Africa, got their independence. 1955, Osem Njoma or Toivo were flying up and down, trying to get support from countries in the north like Nigeria. I'm thinking 1955, they only got their independence in 1990. But what struck me in that documentary is that most of the southern African countries had colonial names. Southwest Africa, Botswana land, Rhodesia, South and North Rhodesia, Swaziland. All these countries have...
The whole continent. Ghana was the Gold Coast.
Yes, I get that. Upper Volta, Burkina Faso.
Yes.
But now all or most of them have changed, right? Tina say South Africa.
Because we haven't gotten our independence.
But I thought the ANC was in charge. I thought
black
people are in
there's
control.
There's a difference between all those countries declared an independence. South Africa is still a colony because they have not declared they haven't put it down in no uncertain terms to the world that actually what they got instead was democracy. You can't be in a democracy. You can be democratic about how to do things, but you can't just be in a democracy. I can be democratic about my relationship with my children. I can be democratic about my relationship with my employees, but I can't be in a democracy.
Break it down for me. Make it simple.
If you're saying you're in a democracy, you're saying that's the way you elect your leaders. You're not saying anything about your operational style. That's why Ben City, if it's not family orientated, because the worst thing about all these traumas is the breakdown of the family. So if we're not resurrecting the nation from that, if your only answer to trauma is BEE and not a spiritual address, it's because the family is not the center of the discussion. Democracy is an American model sold to so-called third world. It doesn't answer anything about those people. It's not their own determination.
So how would your proposal of focusing on the family structure, how will that help us realize these freedoms that we long for?
I feel that the family is your primary structure, right? You're from somewhere. The minute that family is hurt, or you have someone who's hurt within the family structure, they go out and become a hurt community member, and hurt people hurt people. So for us to fix the amount of femicide, the amount of mother wounds that because it must be the mother wound. I don't know what we've done to men, but there's a mother wound that is not being addressed, that only men can explain to us or to themselves what's going on. But we can't, if that's not part of the discussion, then you can't just come up with a flash thing and say, stop GBV. You know, this thing of having campaigns, when you can't have a campaign or march against a behavioral problem. You can march for water. That's a tangible thing. We want 10 liters of water per day. I can't march against the violence of women and children. That's a behavioral problem. We have to start having proper conversations. But if the main shandis is to accumulate money, then we don't have time. Where do we get to sit and talk about our dignity and our family? We don't have time because it's mad. So you have to decide what your priority is. Do you want to be a restored person, or do you want to be a competitive? We're never going to catch up with these people. What we should be doing is sitting down. If you broke your leg, you have to go for therapy, don't you?
Yes.
You have to go for physiotherapy. They take the cast off. They do this. They do this.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah, I've got a brace on now, but the spirit hasn't been attended to in the same way. you know?
So there's no way of getting back to normality if we haven't gone through that therapy.
No, then you
of
can't
fixing-
walk.
Yes, you
There's
can't
there's
walk
there's
properly.
nowhere in the world where people don't go through some form of therapy. You know?
How do you see this therapy taking place, playing out?
Oh, we have like millions of artists and healers. For me, this is like the no-brainer part. You know? The healers must come and take center stage, the artists, of which it's also one thing at some point. Those should be the leaders on the continent. Like, for example, the situation in Gaza right now, it's only an artist that can intervene on that.
But
Only if you took a drum orchestra of 5,000 people, there's no soldier that's gonna, like, it's only artists who can, through imagination, free the nation. We are the only people who can quicken things through the alchemy of what we can do, right?
here's my take on art. I think art awakens us to what's happening, makes us think deeper about it, makes us realize the extent of the damage that is being done or whatever, the magnitude of what is happening. But I don't think it pushes us to do much. And Mna, as I'm saying to you, we've been talking. We've been having depictions. We've had Masello, we've had Miriam Makeba, we've had other prominent, Ayanda Mabulu, but change is not happening.
I can't do that on your behalf, right?
Okay.
So all I can do is say, here's what I think.
The reason why I'm asking
Right?
you,
And-
you guys are enlightened as artists because you
Yes,
bring these
but-
things to
but
the
we
fore,
can't push-
and you
I-
awaken
I
our
can't-
senses
I
to it.
can't-
What do we do?
I can't
Don't push us, advise.
push
What do we do?
people, right? And it's I'm not sure how people should respond, because if your attention is initially held by capital, then you're only looking at me like this when you get a chance,
Look,
because you're on the
I want money, but I'm also aware of what's happening, and I see the injustice. Nothing breaks my heart like seeing poverty. Abantu bakuthi. I was actually driving here. On my way out of my place, there's a woman sitting on the pavement with an infant. We are crying. Came back, asked what's happening. By the time I came back, there were 2 security guards. Bemngangile. What's happening, Sissy? She says she's been kicked out of a place. She doesn't have anywhere to go. I could tell she's not from here, probably from Malawi or Zimbabwe. She could be from anywhere. But Kuluma, she was probably in Ndebele or from Malawi. I don't know. I can't really tell. But she has nowhere to go. And these guys actually, I'm like, guys, why are you chasing this woman? This is a public road. Uthi,
Let us
no,
sit.
what if kuzawufika ezinye amadoda apha, and then they break into, I'm like, guys, but this is a public road, man. Let this woman chill. Yeah, she's trying to collect her
she's still trying to
thoughts,
think
you know.
what she's going to do. Well, I mean, earlier on you asked me what was that moment, right? And I said, there's this story that I tell about what happened when I was a teenager. But prior to that, my father's from Limpopo, so we used to go home from Soshanguve. And the one time, so it would always be an early trip, so that we'd be there around 8 or 9. So we'd leave about 3. So we started leaving Pretoria at around that time, 3:30. And we were made to drink lots of water and tea. And I remember my dad always used to stop at the same point for a pee break. So we just finished peeing, we got back into the car. And then we started driving behind this truck. And as it's going, more people are. Then I realized there's people on it. It's open. It's cold as hell. Then I realized these people are starting to get up. And huddling. And some of them started getting up. So now this truck starts getting enemy. And then I realized there's people. So I say to my mom, where are these people going? And it's cold. Why aren't they covered? She says to me, they're working on the farms. Prior to that, there'd been a lot of discussions about what apartheid was, what injustice was in the home. And that one moment cemented, oh, this is what everyone's talking about. You know what I mean? It just,
How old were you?
I think I was about 5 or 6.
Wow.
But it haunted me for a long time. And it still haunts me. Like for me, that's the basis of everything I do. That's the basis of my activism. So I was disturbed enough to want to not duplicate that reality for myself.
I admire work, keep doing it, but how do we bring it to the fore, though? I think it's that important, when Masello, that the world needs to see. Obviously, I'm going to put it up on this length of videos, but how do you bring it to the mainstream? Do you think the mainstream is interested?
I think.
Do you think capital wants to back that type of art?
It's anti-narrative, so I'm not surprised that it's not getting that sort of attention. A lot of people who approach the same topics as I do get more attention, but there's the veneer of academicizing things, of diluting things, of making it palatable to the institutions. So there's all sorts of ways to engage, right? But my main thing is to make work. But I think that if people wanted to be seen more, how you can support an artist like that, I think to answer you, is that any artist who has a reach has a team, right? Beyonce is not sitting there answering the emails. So Tina, we don't want to make a team around the artist because you know what I mean? Unless some American or some white person then says, ooh, look at Masello, then we have to be affirmed by Black Americans or white people first. So I can't wait.
I'm not a Black American.
I can't wait to
I'm affirming Masello.
Yeah, but I can't wait to be,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can't wait for the right people to, I can only make the work. I do wish I had a wider reach, but I can only make and conceptualize and what. At some point, one day, maybe people will say, hey, look, we're going with you. We'll do camera every time. But I can't.
What keeps you going? It can't be easy, I would like to assume, unless I'm wrong. But what keeps you going?
Maybe hope.
Hope that Christ is coming again soon.
No, that nigga must chill. That nigga must chill. Magahlale phaya eKaltoni wasamfuni.
What hope? That's the hope that's driving me as a Christian.
I mean, the hope that one day that the girdle will burn, like that one day we will feel the same urgency, you know? And I think slowly but surely, like the fees must fall generation.
But you sound like Kanye, 400 years? Urgency.
No, look, I can only do, in my own life, I've answered what the things that bother me. When I was dispossessed, I occupied. When I was dispossessed of my tongue, I went to re-enacting. I didn't go to commissions and talks going about how white people dispossessed me through violence. I just do it. Yeah. So in my own life, I've made sure that I emancipate myself in my time. I can't do that on behalf of other people. I can only say, hey, here's some clues here. I tried, you know, but the hope that people will see the same things so that we have a better future as a people. And I'm always inspired by art, by the world. Like, those are the advantages of being artists. You have to find things to inspire you.
Thanks for your work. You inspire me. I hope you inspire more people than just me. I really, really admire, more than admire. I've learned a lot from your work. Maybe you're an old soul because we're the same age, but I've learned so much from you. And I hope you get the courage to carry on being the third eye that takes us beyond or beyond the peripheral, or beyond what we just see, and help us see beyond the stuff we only see on mainstream TV, and see behind the headlines, because I think that's what you're doing. I really appreciate the time. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you for telling my story.
May you be blessed.
Thank you.
Beyond measure. in the capitalist system and the spiritual. Thank you.
That's an
very much.
oxymoron. You can't be blessed in a capitalist system.
Serious.
It's there
Even
to
if
take
you-
away your blessings.
Even if you're Bezos and Musk, are they not blessed?
They are blessed in the kumashandis wabo. Yeah, esintwini sabo le. They are blessed there.
A closing message?
Our own emancipation is in our hands, and I think it's time that we stop complaining about white people so much while we're imitating them half the day. And self-determination is about the confidence to say it's okay for us to be who we are. We don't have to always answer to whiteness. We don't need a black version of everything. Let's just do our own thing and circulate the black rand.